There's nothing like homemade sourdough loaf made with fresh milled flour. Perfect for everyday baking. It's wholesome, it's real, and it is irresistibly delicious. Let's get baking. For today's sourdough loaf, we are going to be using hard white berries, and we're going to go ahead and freshly mill it up. I've got the Wonder Mill, and the hard white is going to give you that traditional sourdough loaf flavor. And my kids love this one, so I'm excited to share this recipe with you. We're going to go ahead and measure out 500 grams of the hard white flour. And I love fresh milling my own flour because, y'all, and I really want to encourage you to do it too, because when you fresh mill it, you are retaining the 40 out of the 44 essential nutrients that your body needs. And it's, you know, all the vitamin B's and the vitamin E's to protect your cells. It's just so nutritious for you. Okay, and also if you notice, this is how the grain looks. So it's, you can tell it's intact, and then I'll show you what the flour looks like as well. When you are fresh milling your flour, I like to protect my ears. Okay, we're now just gonna dump that flour in here. And if you've got, you know, your milling container, I use the Wonder Mill, whatever it is that you're using. They may have like a little cap at the top, which in here for the Wonder Mill, and it may be the same on some of the other mills, that's going to hold in the softest grains of the flour, like the finest grains. Sorry, that's what I'm trying to say. So always dump that in there, and I'll clean it later. By the way, if you notice, today I'm not using a glass bowl, I'm using my stainless steel bowl. Is that going to kill the sourdough starter? No, it's not. So you don't want to use anything that's got like metal, you know, copper, things like that. But this is stainless steel, so it's completely fine to use that. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to pour in 350 grams of room temperature water. I always fill it up with filtered water, and then I put a food cover bowl or a shower cap over it to keep it at room temperature, because I do it beforehand. And I am tearing my scale up, make sure it's on grams, to 350 grams of water. And I am a fast person, okay? So making sourdough bread is so good for me because it forces me to slow down. So I don't know if you're like me, but one of the things that makes me slow down is the scale, because you have to wait for it to catch up with you. So I just want to make you aware of that part. Okay. And then what I am going to do right now is I've got my Danish dough hook. If you don't have a Danish dough hook, you don't have to. You can use a spatula. I'm going to just stir my water and my flour together. And this is a process called autolyse, and then you autolyse. So anyways, the whole point of this is that it is so that your flour can get properly hydrated. Because remember, we're not using store-bought flour, we're using fresh milled flour, and this contains the bran, the germ, and the endosperm. So it needs to take a minute so that it can fully hydrate the flour. And so we're going to let this sit together once we've incorporated everything in here for a good 30 minutes. And the thing that I like about the Danish dough hook is that I can see how it's not like all over it, and then whatever's left is you can just easily put away. And then I'm going to get it, and I usually get my hands at it at the very end so that I can get out all the little pieces of flour, because it usually sticks. If you can see this, let me just show you. It sticks at the bottom of my bowl. So what I do is I just kind of drag it around at the bottom, and just to get all the dried flour pieces. All right, and then I'm going to put my shower cap on it. Let me just use the one for my water. And I'm gonna let this sit here for 30 to 45 minutes so it can autolyze and hydrate my dough. All right, our dough has had its nice little nap during the autolyze, and now it's time to wake it up a bit. So at this stage, all we've done so far is we've mixed flour and water, and that rest has allowed the flour to fully hydrate and start forming, the gluten naturally. But the dough isn't alive yet, so it's just a hydrated, I don't know, blob of potential. So now we're gonna add two super important ingredients, your sourdough starter and your salt. And this is where the magic really begins. I'm gonna add 100 grams of active sourdough starter. And I want you to think of the starter as like the engine of the dough. It's full of, wild yeast and the friendly bacteria, and that's gonna make your doughs rise, and it's gonna give it flavor, and it's gonna create all those beautiful bubbles and that tangy aroma that we think of when we add it in sourdough. All right, so when you mix the starter in, don't worry if it's a little sticky or if it's uneven at first. It's gonna blend as we do our stretch and folds. We're adding 12 grams of salt in here, and the salt controls the fermentation so that things don't go wild too quickly. And of course, it adds flavor. We're just going to mix it all together. I just, rotate my ball. I just rotate the bowl and flip it over until all of the starter is combined into the flour. And once that's done, we will do our first set of stretch and folds. By the way, if y'all just saw, I just slung some of the dough out of the bowl. Okay. My kitchen's messy, and I feel like messy cooks are good cooks. And yeah. Anyways, I will tell you this real quick as I'm stirring the dough together. The little neighborhood kids in my area, they're selling their little bracelets, that they made. And I had them make me, I was like, okay, I will pay for a bracelet. And they made me, I don't know if y'all can see it. I said, fresh flour living. I said, I want to be like dough and butter. Isn't that the sweetest? Oh, that was really sweet. Okay, let me get this mixed up. All right, now comes the fun part. It's our first stretch and fold. Oh my gosh, I love this part. This is where we start to build structure and strength in the dough. And we're gonna do this without kneading. And I want you to think of it like giving your dough a gentle workout. So you're gonna notice that right now it's pretty loose and stretchy, and that's totally normal. We're going to coax it into becoming smoother and stronger over time. So if your dough's a little sticky, you can wet your hands so that the dough doesn't stick so much. But we're gonna wanna repeat this process a few more times. And it's usually about 3 to 4 sets. And I space mine out, 30 minutes, maybe 45. It just depends on the dough temperature and, really how it feels. And each time your dough is gonna feel stronger, silkier, and puffier. And that's the gluten developing and the fermentation, just kind of doing its thing. But by the end of the stretch and folds, your dough should be holding its shape better, smooth on top, and have a nice airy feel when you lift it. We are done with our stretch and folds. Your dough should look glossy and smooth. It is so beautiful. But to make sure that it is done, what you can do is do what's called a window pane test. So let me get some dough off for you. And what you want to do with your dough is you want to stretch it and make it really, really thin enough so that you can see light coming through without it ripping. I don't know why, but I love the window pane test. It's just so much fun. I love bread making in general. Like, it is just such a great hobby to have. And just love making bread for myself, for my family, for others. I can get you a good window pane test. You see the light coming through? Nice and stretchy with the light coming through. So that means it is done. Ignore that ripping. Anyways, what we're going to do now is we are going to put it in a warm spot and let it ferment for 6 to 8 hours. It really depends on the temperature of your house. My house is cold right now, so I'm going to put it in the oven with a light on, and I'm going to put it, covered. And then I suggest that you do this. I put a do not use oven sticky note on my oven so that myself and everybody in the house knows not to use the oven. All right, our fermentation is done. This is what your dough should look like. And can you see that jiggle? So it is ready now for my favorite part, which is the shaping. So what I've done is I've got a banneton, and what I love to do is line it with rice flour, organic rice flour. And what I do is I just literally do it like this. I get some in my hands and I rub it all into the fiber of the bowl, because the last thing you want is for your dough to stick when you get it out of the fridge in the morning. So I just rub it really good. Now, I love, sometimes this will have, I have a linen that came with it that I use that, or like this time, I'm going to keep it just with the bowl so it'll make these beautiful designs around it. So you're going to see that tomorrow morning. But we go ahead and dust. And if you don't have rice flour, that's been the best one that won't stick. You can use whatever flour that you have, whatever freshly milled flour that you have, okay? All right, so now I am going to get it out of the bowl. And look, you can even see the bubbles, so you know that it has done a great job of fermenting, on my word, you can tell it's nighttime. And so now what I'm going to do is, you see how it's just kind of a blob? Well, what we need to do right now is we need to build some tension so it doesn't stay like a blob. So what we're going to do is I just scoot it around like that. And then my husband's filming me right now. Could you get the side view so everybody can see as I go like this? You see how it's rolling against the counter? Okay, that is building tension. So I do it clockwise and I pull it through clockwise, and then I pull it through. You don't want to, let me show you what you don't want to do. You don't want to just go like that, right? Because that's not building tension. You don't want to slide across the counter, and you pull it through like that. So I do this about 8 times. And look, you can even see like the beautiful air bubbles, which, we don't want to pop, because, we took the time with the fermentation to build those pockets of air, and this is going to hold the air pocket, so our dough is going to rise nicely. Look at how gorgeous this is, and it's retaining its shape. And by the way, if you don't have a banneton, what you can do is you can use a colander, and then you can line it with a tea towel, and you need to do something like that so it'll have airflow in there, or a bowl, but a colander would be really great. But the bannetons aren't that expensive, and I wanted to point this out. The reason why the bannetons are so great is because it's a high bowl. So if you don't have a banneton and you're going to use a bowl, make sure it's not a shallow one. You need it to be high so it will hold the shape of your dough. That's very important. Okay, so we have now created our shape. I flip it over like this, and I'm also going to put just a little bit of rice flour right here, because I just don't want it to touch. And then what I also do is this is my extra tip. I go around the sides, I lift it up a little bit, and I put the rice flour on the sides so I can make sure it's not going to stick. And then what you want to do is you want to take a cover. I have these shower caps, food covers. I got them on Amazon. They're awesome. I love them. And then we are going to cover our ball of dough. Oh, I forgot to show you the jiggle. This is the best part. So your dough is ready. Look at that. When you get the jiggle. Yay! You see the jiggle? Okay. Now it is time for us to cover our bowl. And what we're going to do now is we are going to place it in the refrigerator overnight. Make sure it has a minimum of 14 hours. You can go as long as 3 days. So I'm going to pop this in the fridge and I will see you in the morning. Good morning. It is the next day. I am getting the dough out of the refrigerator here, and it has been fermenting for about 14 hours. And I wanted to show you what it looks like. See how it's retained its shape, and it is, you know, in a nice circle format. So that looks really good. So what you want to do now is you want to go ahead and preheat your oven to 475. And so while that's preheating, we are going to go ahead and score our dough. I find that gives it, because with the dough, you don't want it too warm or too cold before you put it into the oven. So that's like the perfect amount of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out a thing of parchment paper, and we are going to dump the dough onto the parchment paper. Now, I want you to watch this. Let me scoot the camera back. Because we use the rice flour, bam, did you see how easy that popped out? I'm telling you, rice flour is the way to go. But I have run out of rice flour before, so if you just really flour it, it'll pop out. Okay, so that's amazing. Now, what I like to do next before I score, you're going to score the lame, and this is basically just a razor blade attached to the handle, and then you'll replace it, you know, when it starts to get dull. But what I like to do is I like to sprinkle some rice powder over it. It's really white, and I am doing this for aesthetic purposes. And when I mean that is that when I score, you'll be able to see the pattern really well because it creates a nice contrast. So let me put you over. Okay, so I have my lame here. Obviously, it's really sharp, and you can score it however you want. I'm going to do, I usually like to do a nice little half moon shape right there. And then you can make some nice wheat stalks if you want to, or little tears. I'm just going to do, I think I'm going to do a tic-tac-toe today. And then another little side. And basically, you can't mess this up. I mean, this is where you are controlling the burst, so that when the bread is in the oven and the steam rises out, it's got to find it'll find the weakest point in the dough and just burst, unless you tell it where to burst. And I did want to say, I'm going to create a video where I'm going to show you how to do the sourdough, but we are going to paint the sourdough with natural coloring. So be on the lookout for that video. I'm really excited about that one. Before I put it in the fridge, I did want to mention, notice how it's kept its shape. It's not like spreading out all over the parchment paper. That is a sign that your dough has properly fermented. Get those really good oven mitts on, because this cast iron is going to be hot, hot, hot. It has been preheating in the oven for 30 minutes to get it really hot. And don't burn your countertops like I've done. Take the lid off, put it on a nice pan. You are going to now lift the, I know I'm going fast because I don't want to lose the steam. Lift the parchment paper, put it in the oven to create even more steam. I spray the top with water, and then I put this back in the oven with the lid on. And hold on, let me put it in the oven. We're gonna go super fast. And what I do is after I've put it in the oven and I close the oven, now what we're gonna do is we are going to change the oven temperature to 450. And we are going to bake for 40 minutes. All right, the timer just beat. Let's take this out of the oven and see what it looks like. Ooh, I'm gonna bring it over here, set it here. See, here's my setup. I put my lid, my other 2 cast iron pans. Oh boy, can you see that? Look at that. And this is why I like to leave the cover on, because I just didn't want the top of the loaf to get burnt or too crispy. But if you like a darker top of the loaf, then for the last 10 minutes, I would suggest taking the cover off. But what we're going to do right now is we are going to let it cool for 30 minutes so it can still develop the inside of that crumb. Okay, so now I am going to break off a piece and let's go ahead and taste it. You know what I love about this is that the inside of the crumb is soft and it's got a tight crumb because of all the bran, the germ, and the endosperm, which I love because this is gonna make really good sandwiches because it's actually not gonna fall through, you know, the giant holes in the bread. And this is the difference between all-purpose flour and fresh milled flour. All-purpose flour is gonna have those giant holes. Fresh milled flour, because it contains all of the nutrients, is not going to have that huge air, you know, the huge holes, which I like because I don't want my jelly or my honey to fall through there, and it's easier to make sandwiches too. So anyway, so the outside of the crust is chewy and the color is just beautiful. So let me go ahead and take a little bite and tell you what it tastes like. I'm so excited for you guys to try this sourdough sandwich bread recipe. So I let my bulk fermentation for 14 hours. It is so good. And the reason why I'm mentioning that is because it is not too strong and it's not too mild. So that window seems to work really well for my family. If you want a tangier, stronger sourdough, you're gonna leave it in your refrigerator longer. But 14 hours is just, it's a good time. Anyways, I just want to say, I really hope that you will give this sourdough bread recipe a try using fresh milled flour. I want to again encourage you to fresh mill it, and you are going to see the difference that it makes in your family, both with the health and with the taste. So thank you for being here on Fresh Flour Living, and I'll see you in the next one.